Meeting with our Coeur d'Alene Economic Development Corporation, President Ginny Gilliam. And it's February 8th, 2023, 10 a.m. I'm calling this meeting to order. In attendance or present are Commissioners Brooks, Matari, and Duncan. Are there any changes to the agenda? Changes to the agenda? All right, I just have to ask. All right, so we'll get down to our item, which is our Coeur d'Alene Economic Development Corporation update. You need to push your button there. Yep.
Just once?
Yes, there you go.
Number one, we want to officially invite you to the meeting. Two things is because I was going to report today, so we didn't think yesterday you needed to come as well, or was that last week? I lose track of days.
Sure.
And then also our bylaws says that I present a new person to the board votes on it, and then we do the official invitation. So we will invite you to the March meeting.
Okay.
Which
March what?
March 8th, I
Okay.
believe.
I'll be in Israel, but
Okay.
yes.
You
Go
can, if you're available, you can join us by Zoom, because I think it will be Zoom, but
Okay.
either way, I can fill you in if you're not there.
Okay.
Is how we do it.
Sounds good.
Okay. So we thought I'd put in this little paragraph on history because I didn't know, Bruce, whether you were familiar with Jobs Plus. So established in 1987 by community and business leaders. At that point in 87, we were reliant on really only natural resource-based industries, so ag, timber, and mining. And our community and business leaders wanted to make sure that our community continued. So they got together and said, let's go try to bring some small manufacturers into the area. So they hired Bob Potter. Some of you may be aware of that. And by the way, our official name is still Jobs Plus. Legally, we're still Jobs Plus. We're just doing the DBA. Okay. And part of the reason for that is Jobs Plus implied that we were a employment agency. Oh. So I ended up spending fairly good time just telling people we're not an employment agency. Okay. So we do that for 10 minutes, and then midway through the conversation, so can you help us with the labor? We can, but through Idaho labor, right? And so we said, let's just do the DBA as an EDC, which is a known quantity for the industry, yeah, both for business and for our industry. So it made it significantly easier. I don't have to spend 30 minutes trying to say who we're not. Yeah. And it gives me more time to talk about who we are. So anyhow, at that point, I'm going to say the first 15 years, the main focus was bring business into the community. And it was mostly small manufacturers. I think I have some examples here on who we brought in. So it's like Buck Knives, Titan Springs, well, not Buck Knives, but small manufacturing companies that will diversify our industry. Since those first 15 years, it has really transitioned back to both economic development, so business retention and expansion, as well as the business attraction. And then that more balanced approach is actually the better approach for economic development as a whole. Okay, here are some of the stats that we have. The company has probably helped way more than 300 plus companies. 150 of them have created jobs, about 9,000 direct jobs in the area. Annual payroll, we're calculating at a range, so 300 million to 468 million annually circulating in the community. And then this stat I thought was really interesting. You guys are like one of the leaders in wage increase. Your average in the county, this is county employees, was 41.6 in 2015, and it's roughly 65 now. For the communities, so CDA, MSA, which is the same as Kootenai County, but you know, the physical space, it went from 38 to about 45, so a 20% increase. So you guys just about more than double the increase over the 7 years. And that is always one of the goals for economic development, is improve the wages in the area. We tend to focus on what's called leading industries. So these are the industries that, so manufacturing, right? They sell, I guess the quickest way to explain it is they sell elsewhere, they bring money into the community. Okay, so we don't normally focus on recruiting retail companies, restaurants. Once in a while we do help them because they come to us for assistance. But for the most part, our focus is manufacturing, technology, the ones that drive the industry. Okay, not to say that education and health, even though it's mostly a service, in many communities, it's also a key driver. Okay, because education will bring people from different parts of the region. So in a sense, it's also bringing money into the area. Of course, its product is education and talent, workforce, right? Health is the same way. Before, you can think of it about our hospital. Before, it was mostly focused on providing service within Kootenai County, and then we were losing a lot of money to Washington because people were exporting their needs for healthcare. Kootenai Health has really started bringing in a whole slew of different specialties into the hospital, right? And so now we're keeping that money into the area as well. So our drive is, anyway, our focus is leading industries. What we're really trying to do is we're trying to build the critical mass in the key industries that we want to grow so that there will be continued growth in that particular industry. So say manufacturing. We've been focused on manufacturing for a while. At this point, manufacturing companies are calling us wanting to come here because it has now enough critical mass that it's kind of growing on its own. It's helping itself build the primary supply chain, the secondary supply chain, and the tertiary supply chain. The secondary and the tertiary are the restaurants. They need to hire a cleaner for their facility. They need to repair it, those kinds of things. The direct suppliers are the ones that are giving them their goods to turn into products. Okay, so we're almost there in the manufacturing. What we're trying to do now is we're trying to focus on the more advanced side of manufacturing. Most manufacturing is advanced now, but we're trying to focus on the aerospace, medical device manufacturing. And we have a pretty healthy batch of that type of companies here because of our proximity to the Puget Sound, at least on the aerospace side. And then that's also numbers that are borne out when we have our I-90 Aerospace Conference and Expo in the areas. That's something we started in 2015 in partnership with Eastern Washington. We knew that we had a pretty good batch of aerospace companies, and not necessarily just focused on aerospace, but companies that supply to the aerospace industry. And we are not primary suppliers. We are like ATC, for instance, okay? If you're ever sitting in an airplane, practically every composite plastic-looking thing on that airplane, there's about 100 plus pieces that ATC makes for Boeing, okay? Titan Springs, little company, maybe 50 people, and Glenn always says that if it flies, it probably has one of my screws, one of my bolts, one of my springs, okay? We have Unitech, for instance, also another composite company. So they also build a lot of parts for Boeing. So we're like secondary supply chain. Let's say the ones that make the seats. If they need any plastic parts, they probably get it from ATC. If they need springs, they go to Titan Springs or they go to Acrofab, those kinds of things. A lot of our aerospace companies are also doing medical device manufacturing, okay? And this is something we found out as an I-90 group, okay? Because we're trying to help those existing businesses be more stable, right? So we said, so what do you need from us? They said, well, we need more medical contact because it stabilizes our companies if we're supplying to the auto industry, aerospace industry, medical industry. If any one of those industries take a dip, they're still busy doing things, okay? And so we're starting to bring some medical device manufacturers to I-90 so that we can provide that stability for our companies. One of the things that we noticed, I-90, when we put it together, it has three purposes. One was to provide a networking venue for all of our manufacturers in that aerospace industry. The idea being if they know about each other, they're more likely to supply chain from each other than from, I'm making this up, North Dakota, okay, or Nebraska or anywhere else. Because, and we were noticing that. We were noticing that, oh, I didn't know so-and-so did that. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get my CNC machining locally. Why am I going to Washington? Why am I going to Montana when I can go here or just barely across the border? We kind of consider this I-90 from us to Spokane as a unit when we're talking about the aerospace industry. Makes us stronger when we're functioning together. When the two organizations joined, we were able to invite Boeing, we were able to buy Bombardier, we were able to invite bigger companies that are looking for small business partners. Small business partners for these big companies means they get points when they're doing their government contracting. So they want to partner with the small businesses that we have in the area. So anyway, so that was one of the purposes, was for them to be able to network, because we wanted to localize the supply chain as much as we can. We wanted them to get to know each other. And then also we wanted them to hear about state of the art within their industries. And then as the last thing to it, we wanted it to be able to be a recruiting tool for us as well. The more people knew about us having a good, strong, whatever industry it is that we're trying to market, it helps when they see all these businesses together, right? So one of the ways that that partnership really played out is during the pandemic. Our hospital needed the face shields. So AcroFab in Eastern Washington partnered with Continuous Composites, which is just down the street on 4th, and they built these it's the plastic screens and masks that our hospital was using, because in order to be safer. There are other partnerships like that, and a lot of our aerospace companies, because we had some that were already medical manufacturers, and the whole supply chain was messed up because of the pandemic, but they knew about so-and-so from us. They kind of reshuffled and partnered with each other. So our aerospace industry manufacturers, even though the aerospace industry took a hit, were actually doing very well because they started partnering with the medical device manufacturers in the area. So that's the purpose of I-90, is to be able to do that localized. We want to be able to do that for the bioscience industry, but we just haven't quite gotten there yet, okay? The other thing that we do is we try to help navigate the growth towards these higher wage companies, okay? There's always an argument that if we just left it alone, things will grow, okay? Won't necessarily grow in the direction we want it to grow, or we won't necessarily bring the companies in that pay the higher wages that we want. And I realize that high wages, it's kind of dual-edged sword, right? It helps all the people in our community because then we're able to increase their quality of life. Makes it harder for our businesses, of course, because their profit margin goes down a little bit. And just different things. There's two sides to that, right? We want, as a community, for our residents to have higher wages so that they can afford to live here. The numbers that I gave you guys, if it were normal housing growth here and we were growing our wages at 20% to 56%, we'd be ahead of the game, right? Unfortunately, we all know that's not the housing growth price here. Housing growth price here is, I don't know, my house is a crazy value, and that I would not pay for it now, okay? And I paid for it, I think, little under half of what it's worth now, and that's just in 8 years, which is ridiculous because I bought it to live in. I didn't buy it for an investment. I bought it so I have a home, I have a roof, I can go to work, that kind of stuff, right? So anyway, the other things we do is we help with job retention and job creation, okay? I mentioned the 9,000 direct jobs. An example of job retention in the area, and I'm going to use this simply because it's one of our larger industries. Construction industry and two related industries to it, finance, insurance, real estate. Okay, we have, hold on, need my glasses. We have about 8,000 residents working in construction. Average wage about $63,000 a year. We have an additional 1,600 people working in real estate. Average wage 59,000. We have another 2,700 residents working in finance and insurance. Average wage higher because it's finance. So these three industries account for 2 billion of the 8.2 billion GRP in the area. It's like 24% of our GRP. These three industries account for 12.3% of our 77,000 total employment, about 16%. Okay, so the chart that you have in front of you, that's the breakdown of our GRP in the area. The run in red, ag, timber, and mining, you can see that if the community leaders didn't get together in '87, we would probably be in a world of hurt, right? The industries above that you see, and I did include retail in there. It's not something that we normally recruit, but it's something that continues to grow as economic development continues to succeed in the area. The green ones are the ones that we're kind of, especially in bold, are the ones that we're targeting. Transportation and warehousing continues to grow in the area. And the reason for that is if you look at the whole United States, of course, the eastern side grew much faster rate than the west, right? And then the southwest started to grow. And now it's the northwest that's growing along with the southwestern part of Canada. And because those two areas are growing, we need more warehousing, more transportation, more distribution. We have two projects that are coming online, part of the Kenworth triple hat that we have, right? Okay, we have one that's still, it kind of got held up, COVID, all sorts of different things, but it's still a go. One of their suppliers is also still a go. So that's a project where we actually get 3 really good paying jobs that go with that particular project. Information technology, it kind of can't help but grow just because everything is going in that direction, which of course means that we have professional, scientific, and technical development that goes with that. On the health industry, we actually want to grow it more vertically, not just the health, the service, and the care, right? If we can do medical device manufacturing, if we can do R&D, if we can do just the vertical part of the growth in the healthcare, that is really good paying jobs, okay? That will really help employ our students coming out of University of Idaho, LCSC, all those different things. I want to kind of step back a little bit. And I think I've reported this to you guys before, even if it's not in person, on paper, that the workforce shortage we're having is not something we're going to solve probably in the next 2 decades, okay? According to economists, replacement rate is 2.1. Okay, the boomers, we did our job. Okay, we're probably over that number, okay? But a lot of us are retiring, and our kids are not even close to 2.1. They're more like 1.6, 1.7 children per household, okay? And that makes me sad, just as a grandmother as a whole, okay? Because I want grandbabies, right? But at the same time, the more critical part of that is we don't have enough people to replace, okay? So one of the things we're really focused on right now in economic development, and not just us, this is happening across the nation, is we all have to focus on making sure we're growing our own. So every kid from K through 12, every person that wants to work, we have to give them the opportunity to be able to work, stay here, or come back here. If they grew up here, we want them to come back here, okay? So those are just these are just why we're picking those particular industries, okay? The companies that come to us, you know, because, like I said, there's always the argument that they're probably going to come anyway. The world of economic development in the particular industries we want to target is pretty competitive because every community wants to grow in that direction, higher wage, health, science, information, okay? So what they do, and just so you know, connectivity has really changed the way the world of economic development works. Okay, before they had to come to us for everything. Now they do a lot of research on their own, but they come to us to quickly verify information. We saw this on the internet. Who are the resources locally that'll verify this information? We saw this on the internet. Can you connect us with the county planning? Can you connect us with the city planning quickly? Can you get us to the state quickly? And because we have that network of opportunity, we can do it very quickly. Even in a regular world, everybody tells us we're pretty competitive because they're usually looking at us at another location. And they always tell my office that you guys got us connected to the city pretty darn quickly or to the state pretty quickly. So it's that network of partnership that we have. We can't do this on our own. We don't have enough people in our office. So we're always partnered with the planning department here, with all the planning departments across the county, okay? And of course, we help increase, we don't do it, it's the businesses that do the tax increases. We just help facilitate them being able to be successful here. So right now, and I calculated this number of 5 million annual tax revenues at 0.006. I wanted to be very conservative, right? We're technically at 0.08 or 0.01, right? We're almost at 1%, but I wanted to be conservative. So it's about 5 million. And then of course, because of the growth from the businesses, we help with just increasing quality of life in the area. We keep a list of about 50 projects. They are leads that most of them come directly to us at this point. Okay, we have 10% come from commerce, so that means they're looking at statewide. Usually the ones that come from commerce are looking at 3 states or west of the Mississippi. When they call us directly, they're usually down to us and somebody else. Okay, so those are, basically we can accelerate those. They range in number from 5 people in their company to 100 people. And it ranges in, they're going to put in 100 million in CapEx to one of the projects working on now is close to $1 billion in CapEx. Okay, so just a wide range of companies that we have. 30% of the projects we're working on are local businesses that need help. So they want to expand, and you probably all know we don't have a lot of buildings in the area. We have even less that are actually listed. Okay, we do connect with a lot of the commercial realtors in the area that keep it in their back pockets, right? They don't really want to advertise that this space is available or will be available. So when we get a call locally that says somebody is in 2,000 square feet now, needs 10,000 square feet, do any of you guys have anything that's going to become available in the next couple of months? And we'll keep it strictly confidential so that you're talking directly to the company, so forth and so on. Some of them just need help with retaining their workforce, because everybody has that issue right now, or they need help with training their workforce, or they need help with what are the new best practices on hiring, right? Because everything has changed. That connectivity has really changed everything. You don't just advertise and, well, you don't advertise in the paper, because I'm not sure anybody looks for work in the paper anymore, but there's different advertising mediums. So those are some of the things that are looking at us for help. Some of them are looking for non-traditional financing, so PAC. I don't know which one of you is on the PAC board, okay. So PAC is something that we always tell them about. He said, you know, basically if your proposal isn't quite bank ready, the PAC can take a higher risk. That, you know, it's not a total risk that we want to be able to, but PAC can take a higher risk that we can possibly provide you with resources. Sometimes they just need more help in, let's say you're the CEO of the company and you're the one that invented the doodad, okay, or the widget. You're not necessarily the best at marketing it. You're not necessarily the best at your operations for your company. So then we will redirect you to SBDC or some of the private partners that we have in the area that have helped other businesses grow. And we say, you know what, go to SBDC first, because SBDC also has a list of, these are retired, it's core, okay, so retired experts in their field. So it could have been a retired marketing person, retired operations guys, and they will help this very good inventor on how to make their business grow or help make their business more stable, okay? Special projects that we're working on is that talent pipeline management. A lot of these projects are very BRE focused, so business retention and expansion focused. We heard repeatedly from everybody through, okay, you all know this, we had this little blip where unemployment was like this, right? And then within, 3-4 months, it went below where it was before. So through the pandemic and now, we heard repeatedly from our existing businesses, we cannot even sustain operations. You mentioned yesterday 911, we're short, right? Hospital needs roughly 600 people. Their normal turnover before the pandemic was 200. They had normally 200 people, 200 jobs listed at any given time, just normal turnover of people, 600. Okay, every one of our hospitals short. And so we heard repeatedly, so the state actually found some funding. They divided it amongst the 7 regions. We got one of the grants. And so we actually have a full-time person for 2 years to help us launch this program. And the whole program is based out of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. It's industry-led, so industry gets together, and we have a construction cohort, a health cohort, and we're getting ready to put a manufacturing cohort together, and we can put as many industry cohorts as we need for the region. The idea is they all get together and they say, this is really where we need the most help. For instance, the construction guys already told us, we need the most help in entry-level HVAC, entry-level sheetrocker, whatever, entry-level. Hospital, amazingly, of course, there's the whole RN shortage, but they said we also need more CNAs, we need more medical assistants. And so in partnership with NIC, they already started it's a non-credit entry-level position for construction, okay? The more we know what it is that businesses are looking for, and we're qualifying everything with data sets, both internal data from them, from their HR departments. We're going to keep it all confidential, of course, but we'll report it as a whole, as well as data that we're going to get from just existing census, Bureau of Academic, Idaho Department of Labor, all those different things. It makes it easier for us to go, say, NIC, or go to University of Idaho and say, look, we have a group of 40 businesses in the construction industry, or in the manufacturing industry, in the health industry, in the information tech industry, and this is the list of things that they're looking for. These institutions then can go to the state and say, hey, this is not just us telling you we need this. This is supported data. Here's the list of businesses that said they need more RNs. So let's go increase our funding for RN programs. Let's increase our funding for computer science programs, for engineers, whatever it is that the businesses are looking for. The idea is they tell us what they need through their cohort meetings. We then bring our partners in, and let's say it's NIC, they say, well, this is what we already have. And we go, well, there's the gap. Okay, because, this is what they need, here's what we have. Yes, some of that can fill in, but we still have this gap. So that's one of the programs we're working on. We're working with PAHA, which is Maggie's group. I never can remember all the acronyms for everything. And I do have a list, by the way, Leslie. We have a pink sheet that tells you all the acronym and alphabet. So Panhandle Area Housing Alliance, and then what will be Connect Kootenai. We're working with them. We're going to update the study that we did in 21. So we wanted to be more detailed, because in that study, what we said was we're short 2,800 homes. Well, is it 2,800 homes under 500, 2,800 homes? Okay, we also, in that study, knows that there's about 2,000 building permits that were issued for housing. But we want to know what the breakdown is. So that 2,000 that was issued in building permits, how many of them are going to be under 500, or are they all going to be over 1 million? Because that doesn't help us if they're all over 1 million. So we're going to go back, we're going to break down the detail a little bit more so we can go to our developers, which, by the way, and I think we mentioned this to you when Kiki and I came, that we have been talking to our developers. They're all willing to help, which is a really good thing. So they're willing to do some, we have to work out the details, all the legalities and all that, but they're willing to do some set-asides. That's my name for it, okay? I'm not saying that that's what they're called. What we're asking for is, can you give us 3 to X number of months so that the local workforce gets a chance to buy it? Not at a discounted price, not at any special rating or anything, but just give the locals a chance to buy it before you start selling it to corporate housing outfits that buy 12 homes because they want to use it as an investment. And they're all willing to work with us because, as we point out to them, if you have no contractors, you can't build either, right? So what we're thinking is, once we get those set up, we'll let you know that, okay, in this housing subdivision, I'm making up numbers. There's 25 homes set aside for, all our people still have to be pre-approved. Everything still has to be like it normally is. But then they have first dibs basically to make an offer, instead of, it goes up on the market and immediately all the homes are gone, right? All the affordable homes are gone. So those are some of the things that we're working on, home sharing, all the different things that we're looking at. The events, the I-90, I explained to you guys. Evergreen Biosciences is something that's kind of equivalent to the I-90, but in the biosciences field. We haven't quite turned it into an I-90 yet, but the goal is also to find networking venues for our local in that industry, and then we're going to cross them over once in a while because they kind of cross over. We're providing our businesses, local businesses, continued newsletter. We're trying to do industry cluster meetings through the TPM. And then, of course, we're providing all the business resources through all the various websites, not just ours, but through our partners as well. So that's like a quick brief, or kind of a long brief. So any questions that you have for me?
Bruce?
Well, it's maybe some questions.
Sure.
Maybe a little bit of commentary.
Absolutely.
To begin with, I love your energy
Oh.
and your zeal for this.
Will you turn your mic on, please, Bruce? Thank you.
I have a little commentary and maybe some questions here, but first of all, I love your zeal and energy for this project. And, as a business owner, I can really appreciate where you're coming from. From a business perspective, the saying is, if you're not moving forward, then you're going backwards. And so I can see where a lot of these businesses are contacting you and saying, hey, I need help with all these things. And also, as a business owner, when people say slow and steady, I hate that, all right? Because we want to grow as fast as we can. But for a community, believe it or not, slow and steady actually is a much better approach. And we've seen that the last couple of years, how so many people have moved in here that it actually has thrown the equilibrium off. It was surprising when a neighbor who's lived here for 30-some years said, I can't see my cardiologist for 3 months because they're so booked. And so I would almost argue that we really should be thinking about just a little bit of a pause, a little bit of assimilation, to kind of, let things kind of settle out, as opposed to keeping our foot on the throttle and saying, grow, keep growing, grow, grow, grow. Because I don't know to what end. Is this place destined to become like Seattle? Well, if it's not, then what is it destined to be? Where is enough enough? And I think what you're doing is great from the business perspective, but from the forest perspective, I have questions. Like, for example, what kind of manufacturing jobs would you want to see here? What size manufacturing? 1,000 person? 5 person? What's that number?
So what we normally go after are companies that are under 100, more like in the 50 range. Part of our reasoning for that is we would rather have 5 companies with 50 people apiece than 1 company with 250.
Yeah.
A lot of that has to do with if it's going to shut down, hopefully just one shuts down, and we can hopefully put those 50 in other businesses versus one. Once in a blue moon, a company comes here that is pretty big, okay? An example would be when the Amazon distribution center was coming up, okay? A lot of people were asking why we weren't going after that. First of all, they needed something like 700 people, okay? And we don't really want 700 people all in that industry. The pay isn't as well, right? So that's just an example, but we do go after the smaller companies. Big companies will come to us, like the call centers will come to us, and they want to hire 200 people because they know we have a good call center track record. We have Alliance Data here, we have US Bank. We tend to focus more on the high-end type of call centers, and we're kind of saturated in that industry, to be frank. We have almost 4% of our workforce that is working in our call centers. So when they come to us, in a way, we try to discourage it in the most graceful way. An example would be when Inspiro first came here, they wanted to be just a regular call center. We told them that if they did a regular, when we're talking to companies, we don't want them to just come. We want them to come here and succeed and be a part of the community, invest in the community, give to the community, all the things that we want a business to be a part of our community. And so we said, if you're going to come here and you're going to pay 10 to 12, you're going to have a hard time. We're pretty frank with our companies. You're going to have a hard time recruiting business. And this was in 2016, I believe, right? Maybe 17. And we said, you are frankly going to have a hard time recruiting people. At this point, a lot of our businesses are paying entry. I think at that point, people were paying about 14, 15 entry level. And we said, you're going to have to be competitive, you're going to be 14, 15. If you want to be the employer of choice, which is what they kept telling us they wanted to be, I go, well, then you're going to have to go up to 16. So throughout our conversation, they decided to make us a technical center, which meant the higher wages. So their entry level is 16, but I think everybody's averaging more around 18 to 20 plus bonuses. So we try to be very frank with our companies because, like I said, and I tell them, I don't want to just recruit you and have you fail. That doesn't do anybody any good at all. I said, we want you to come here, we want you to succeed. So here is the current situation in labor, here's the current situation in prevailing wages. So when we had MetalQuest come, right? Same thing. He said, I want to succeed here. I go, okay. He goes, and what's the competitive rate? We said, here are the prevailing wages. Okay, here's the low end, middle end, high end. He's paying on the high end.
I noticed on your talent pipeline, you mentioned, well, I guess, is that a little bit of North Idaho College? Is that part of that?
Yeah, North Idaho, because that is where the technical training comes from.
And
our contractors use them for technical training. LCSC and NIC both do the health sciences.
and what percentage of our high school graduates goes to college?
Our high school graduates, I think it's a pretty low percentage.
Yeah.
It is a very
And,
low
one of the
percentage.
things that concerns me when I see things like tech,
Yeah.
information tech, is that every place that is advocated for information technology has ultimately had to find people from outside the area.
Right.
And so I think it's really important that we focus on businesses and opportunities. And actually, call centers, to me, are a great place for a 17, 18, 19-year-old person to learn how to show up to work on time, to follow direction, things like that. And we don't put enough emphasis on these people and on the people who don't go to college. And so the question is, are we advocating for businesses that are going to, by default, require us to have to draw people from other places at the expense of the kids here? And let me just finish one last
Sure.
thing.
Yeah.
There was one person, I remember reading their quote, they said, we need to attract the talent so we can attract the businesses.
We don't quite do it that
But
way.
someone made that comment. And that's what concerns me, is that I want us to focus on the people who are here and how we can give them a sense of purpose and opportunity. Because right now, we have so many people who are now falling victim to drugs and the death of that and the destruction of that. And so I'm supportive of the idea, but it's got to fit into that mold and not attracting people and creating more congestion attracting people from other areas and creating more congestion.
And we totally agree with you, which is why even pre-pandemic, our focus has been on existing business more than recruiting, okay? The recruiting part, we cannot stop, and we, in a sense, don't want to stop, okay? Because at one point, we will resolve some of these issues that we have, and we want to make sure we're still top of mind. The pandemic kind of put us top of mind for everybody, and we sort of want to keep it that way, but at the same time, we don't, a lot of the companies that we have coming are small ones, and they have a lot of them have a connection here. The small companies come here because they have a connection here. Their grandfather lives here. They grew up here, but they went away, and now they want to bring their business back. Those are the ones that are under 50.
Excuse me.
Okay? It's the bigger companies that call us up, but they usually have a 2 or 3 year timeline. Okay? And even those have a connection here. We will hear from the CEO that, oh, we always vacationed here. And now that you guys are growing, I can really bring a division of my business here. So a lot of times there's that connection.
Yeah.
So we're not full bore going out. Prior to the pandemic, we were full bore hitting trade shows, advertising in magazines. We have stopped all of that. First of all, they're already coming to us. So it almost doesn't make sense to spend our money on that when sometimes it feels like we can't even keep up with the phone calls.
Yeah.
Okay? So on that front, we have slowed down in terms of going out and doing the sales calls. I want you to know, however, that every community around us is continuing to do that. And when I go to our national economic development organization, our conference, just about every community is still going out on sales calls.
Yeah.
We have stopped, okay, as an organization.
Yeah. Well, look, and I'll be done after this comment. You know, for me, it would help a lot more to kind of get a sense from your firm to what end.
Oh,
Where
okay.
does this end? What is your perfect description, image,
Okay.
vision of what this community is going to look like with respect to bringing all this business and people here? And then the only other thing I'll say is just with all the folks that I've met throughout the county, I've not had one yet come up to me and say, Bruce, the county is not growing fast enough, okay?
Yes,
And so
we
that's something
understand
that we have to be mindful of when it comes to the community as a whole.
Right.
And that's, I want to yield to the other folks here.
Sure.
Thank you.
As a matter of fact, Leslie, you'll be right smack in the middle of our strategic planning session because it's going to come up end of February, March area. We're trying to find a date that's common to the board of directors. The last one we had was official one was in 2015, and we did a mini one just to check where we are, on our goals and objectives. And for instance, we were talking about, we wanted to make sure we were raising wages. So we were just kind of did a mini check around 2018, 19. We were going to do a strategic planning in 2020, but we all know what happened. So now we're scheduling it for March. But we're very well aware of what's happening in the community, and which is why a lot of our projects right now is response to what is it that our local businesses need. They need the housing for their workforce. They need talent. Yeah. So those are the two that we're focusing on. Childcare is another thing that we hear from the workforce and from the employers as well. Because what they're trying to do with the childcare is a lot of the women, or not just women, but a lot of the people that left the workforce, we want to bring them back because our workforce numbers are significantly less than what it was even 5 years ago, the participation rate.
Yeah, and I can tell you just from my own experience,
Yeah.
these people were not college educated who work for me, who had kids.
Right.
And that I actually looked at doing something like that.
Yeah.
But, again, it's developing business or jobs that people who don't have education
Look for, right.
can work and attracting businesses like that. And that's why I'm a little surprised that call centers are not considered one of those, because that's one of the best entry-level jobs for a young person, in my
It is
opinion.
actually one of the best entry-level jobs. The only reason we don't recruit actively in that anymore is because even the call centers themselves, when a community gets to about 5% employment is in that call center, they consider it saturated as well. And we're pretty darn close to that. And so they know that when it gets to that number, it's hard for them to compete for workforce. But we always welcome the call centers for that reason. There's a funny little story that we heard from one of the call centers. Actually, it was probably Inspiro, US Bank, one of them, okay, that said, we actually try to hire the younger people that are looking for jobs from the Hagedon Corporation because they have trained them so well in customer service that we're always willing to hire people, young people that started out parking your car or whatever, within the Hagedon Corporation. They do such a terrific job training in hospitality and customer service that all of our other businesses that, like you said, are stepping stones up, love hiring from the Hagedon Corporation because of that. And I teased Brad about it one time, and he said, well, I'm glad that we're giving them opportunities to go up. So that's always a good thing. So anyway, probably my time is up, right?
Sure. Bill, questions, comments? Okay, well, I appreciate the update and all that stuff, and I will call for public comment. I know these people in the audience are here for the 11 o'clock meeting, but Jonathan, anyone online? All right, no public comment, then 10:46 meeting adjourned. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you.